You know the feeling, right? You're in a meeting, maybe a class, or just sitting on the couch, someone lets out a big yawn, and suddenly you have this absolutely unstoppable urge to do the exact same thing. That's contagious yawning, and it's one of the most common, but also one of the most mysterious things our bodies do.
So what is actually going on here? Why is it that seeing or hearing, or sometimes even just thinking about a yawn, is enough to trigger one of your own? It's this weird, automatic reflex that we just can't seem to control.
And the effect is, well, it's incredibly powerful. Get this. One study found that just seeing someone else yawn makes you 6 times more likely to yawn yourself. That's a 600% jump in probability just from a simple look.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this mystery, we first have to understand something really important. Not all yawns are the same. In fact, scientists put them into 2 totally different buckets.
But hang on. Before we get into those 2 types, let's just clear up the biggest myth out there. You've probably heard that we yawn because we need more oxygen, right? Well, it turns out that theory was debunked way back in the 1980s. The real story is so much more interesting.
So on one side, we have what's called a spontaneous yawn. This is the kind you see in pretty much all vertebrates. We're talking fish, birds, mammals, the whole shebang. It's that physiological thing that happens when we're tired or bored. But on the other side, you have the contagious yawn. Now this is a much rarer social thing, something we've only really seen in a handful of species, like us and our chimpanzee cousins.
And this brings us to the leading theory for years. Scientists started to think, hey, what if contagious yawning isn't really about our bodies at all? What if it's about our minds? Specifically, it might be a sign of empathy, our ability to connect with and share what other people are feeling.
And there might be a physical reason for this in our brains, the mirror neuron system. These are these amazing brain cells that fire up not only when you do something, but also when you just watch someone else do it. So you see a yawn, your mirror neurons start firing as if you were yawning, and that might be what actually triggers you to do it for real.
Now, this isn't just a hunch. There's actually a pretty good pile of evidence that seems to connect contagious yawning with how social and empathetic we are. Let's take a look at a few of the biggest clues.
Okay, let's start with a really important study from 2007. Researchers showed videos of people yawning to kids. And what they found was that typically developing children caught the yawns way more often than children with autism spectrum disorder, a condition that can sometimes involve challenges with social cues and empathy. This was a huge piece of the puzzle.
And the clues don't stop there. Other studies have found that chimpanzees will actually catch yawns from computer-animated chimps. And back in humans, research found that people who have psychopathic traits, which are defined by a lack of empathy, are way less likely to catch a yawn. So, case closed, right? It's all about empathy. Well, not so fast.
This is where the story gets really good. Just when it seemed like everyone was agreeing on the whole empathy idea, some new research came out that basically turned everything upside down.
In 2014, a massive study published in a journal called PLOS One just dropped this bombshell. After taking the most comprehensive look at this thing to date, the researchers basically said, yeah, that link to empathy, it might not be real.
So what did they do that was so different? Well, it was a big study, 328 people, and they tested a whole bunch of different factors at the same time. Empathy levels, how tired people were, the time of day, everything. And when they put all that data together, that strong connection between empathy and contagious yawning, it just vanished.
So, if it wasn't empathy, what was it? Well, out of all the things they looked at, the only variable that seemed to matter was a person's age. The study discovered that as we get older, we become less and less likely to catch a yawn from someone else.
But here's the part that really blows my mind. Even though age was the only thing that stood out, it could only explain about 8% of the difference between people. That means over 90% of what's driving the super common everyday reflex is, well, it's still a total mystery.
So, after all of that back and forth, where does that leave us? Let's do a quick recap of what we actually know about this weird biological puzzle.
Okay, here are the main takeaways. Number 1, being susceptible to contagious yawns is a real, stable part of who you are. If you catch them easily today, you probably will a year from now. Second, that really neat and tidy empathy theory, it's now being seriously questioned by some pretty big studies. And finally, and this is the big one, the vast majority of what causes this incredibly common human behavior is still completely unexplained.
And that just leaves us with this really cool thought.
A contagious yawn isn't just some quirky little reflex. It's like a tiny window into the incredibly complex connections between our brains, our social lives, and our biology. It's a perfect reminder that sometimes the biggest mysteries are hiding right there in plain sight.